I'm like, well, I want to start investing in real estate, but I don't have any money. And Mike's like, well, why don't you get private money? And I'm like, that's a great idea. What is that?
Hey guys, it's Chris and Mike with Life 180. What's up, cash flow hackers? So I've got Mike and Mike in the building right now. So this is Mike Fritz, guys. If you don't know Mike, he's got an awesome YouTube channel. Go check him out. But Mike Wolf here, head cash flow hacking real estate expert. Buddy, we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. The topic of this video is how to invest in real estate with no money right now, right? And the reason I have these guys on is because they've both done it. They started from scratch. You know, they do it in their own different way. They have a lot of different value to bring to the table right here. So the purpose of this video is to get into a couple strategies. We're not going to do too deep a dive, but it's going to open you up to different ideas that you probably really haven't heard a lot about. This isn't like the other YouTube videos that you've heard of where it's just like, hey, do wholesaling, right? Like that's like what everybody talks about. So these guys are going to be talking about other strategies. So I'm going to just step off to the side and give these guys more room because in my studio here, it's not built for 3 people. And we're going to go from there. So take it away, guys. And Mike.
So Mike, what should we actually talk about?
He said we're not going to dive that deep.
Yeah, I don't know how not to do that.
Now that Chris is gone.
I know, now that Chris is gone, I don't know what to do.
Okay, we're going to do a deep dive.
Yeah, I think so. But I'll tell you what, one of the things back in 2013, when I met this guy, I went to your real estate training back in 2013 and began to learn. And that was the first time I had ever heard the word. So I'm sitting in this setting. Mike's doing some teaching on some of his strategies. And I'm like, well, I want to start investing in real estate, but I don't have any money. And Mike's like, well, why don't you get private money? And I'm like, that's a great idea. What is that? and so Mike starts talking me through this idea of private money. And then it wasn't 3 weeks later, I'm sitting at a dinner with a guy, and everybody talks about raising private capital and they think it's like a strategy. You got to go out and sell it. I'm sitting at a dinner and they're like, so what are you up to? I'm like, well, actually, I'm looking at buying some properties down in Texas. And I'm right now we're partnering with some investors and we're gonna go buy some houses. A guy at that meeting said, "Ooh, I'd be interested in that," and he ended up becoming my first investor because you're like, hey, let's talk through what is private money. And so one of the things you can do to get into real estate is to leverage other people's money. It's one of the most powerful things that's changed. Last year, my company, our multifamily company, Titanium Capital, invested in $16 million of multifamily real estate, and not $1 came from my own pocket. So I think one of the biggest mistakes I made, maybe you're making, all of us make in the beginning, is we look at our bank account and we determine how much real estate we can buy. That's the worst place to look. You don't have to look at your own bank account, I promise you. So there's $29 trillion in retirement accounts in America right now that could be used. And if you want to leverage it, it's available. So we'll talk a little bit more about private money as we go. But what do you do for no money down, Mike? Because you have a bunch of strategies that you've used as well.
I wish I had more time because we could do it. We could do like
he said 15 minutes. We need 15 days.
We'll do another video.
We need 15 days. 15 days.
So where do I even start? Okay, this is stuff I wish I knew when I first started 32 years ago. If I knew this, it would have been a game changer. I did not know it. Back in those days, I would save a down payment, qualify for a mortgage, buy a property, and like once every year or two I could get a property.
That's exactly what I did.
All right, don't do that. Like you can do that, but there's a better way. And
that's better than doing nothing, but that's not, you're going to run out of that very quickly.
If I was starting fresh right now, if I go back to myself 32 years ago, I'd smack myself and I'd say, here's what you want to do. And so number one, wholesaling. Wholesaling is one of the best strategies you can do in real estate with no money. Now what wholesaling is, for those of you who don't know, imagine you're driving your kids to soccer like you do every day, and every day you pass by this home and it's got tarps on the roof, it's falling apart, the weeds are up to your knees. You're thinking, man, I hope somebody fixes this house one day. It's disgusting. It's an eyesore, it's ruining the neighborhood. Well, that's what you thought before you learned how to do wholesaling. Now you're driving your kids to soccer, you pass by and go,
that's a gold mine.
That looks like a paycheck to me.
Yeah, that's right.
And so what you do is you do a little research, you find out who the owner is, you call up that owner, and you say, hey, Mike Fritz, you have this home that's really ugly, that's falling apart.
It's got to be my home. What's the problem?
Let your house fall.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I was out raising private money. I didn't have time to take care of it.
And it's just sitting there vacant and empty. And then Mike says to you, well, you know what? I inherited that from my grandmother, and I thought owning real estate was supposed to be a good thing. All I do is I get calls from the city saying,
grass is too high.
They keep sending me bills, and I keep getting these property tax bills. And if somebody would just give me $100,000, I would like just be so happy to get rid of it. Now, me being, or you being an astute investor, now that you've watched this video, you know that home is not worth $100,000. You know it's worth $300,000. I'm just going to use really round numbers here. You know it's worth $300,000. So you say, I'll give you $100,000. Now the only problem is you don't have $100,000. You don't have the ability to qualify for $100,000. But that's not really a problem, because what you do is you put it under contract. You get Mike to sign the contract. You give yourself what's called an escape clause, which means that if you can't find a buyer for it, you walk away and you get all your money back, even though you don't have any money in the deal. You just have a deposit, which can be $1. And then you call up an investor like myself or any other investor that likes to make money, which is all of them. And you say, hey, Mike Wolf, there's this property I can get for $100,000. There should be a $200,000 paycheck in there. If you're willing to give me $30,000 or $40,000, whatever we negotiate, I'm willing to assign that contract to you. And what assign means is that means you're going to let me run with that deal. You're going to get paid your $30,000 or $40,000. And if I screw up and I make no money, you still get to keep that $30,000 or $40,000. Most importantly, you get paid early. You don't have to wait till the home is fixed and sold, and you don't have to wait for that whole process to happen. You get paid early on. And so now you made $30,000 or $40,000, and if you're smart, you of course, then you start driving a whole lot. It's like, kids, we're going to soccer 5 times a day.
You become an Uber driver.
You become an Uber driver, and every time you see a home that's in that condition, you're going to go and try to track down that owner, and then you're just going to find a buyer for it. Now, the great thing is it's very low risk.
Very low risk. Yeah.
You might have a small deposit.
And the thing I love is you don't need $1 to do that whole process.
Well, you might, in some places, to make a contract legal, you have to have $1.
$1. Okay, $1.
Well, actually, you have to have 1 penny.
But you can actually get private money for $1. Probably somebody would lend you $1.
I would do it.
I would do it too. But seriously though, think about that, making $40,000. This is why when people say it takes money to make money, that's usually people that don't understand money. Because it doesn't take money. It takes you understanding how to leverage money and get these opportunities. But you're driving to soccer practice, you turn your trip to soccer practice into a $30,000 payday.
Well, one of my,
I'm like, when people complain, I'm like, man, there's so many strategies.
One of my students had something similar happen, and he made $70,000 on one
project.
Oh my gosh, one deal.
Awesome. That's
so
amazing.
Now it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you're going to make $5,000, sometimes you're going to make $10,000. Bottom line is it makes soccer practice a lot more fun. And but now I'm going to teach you a couple other strategies. So there's something I call the trifecta of real estate. And the trifecta of real estate is all over the country, there are homes being auctioned off due to delinquent taxpayers. So there's something called tax liens and tax deeds. And if somebody hasn't paid their property taxes in a number of years, the county's eventually going to foreclose on them because they need that money. That goes to their police department, their schools or hospitals. They need that property tax dollars. So my favorite place to do this, by the way, is in Houston, Texas. And every month they publish a list of all these homes that are going up for auction like 3 weeks in advance. And so when I look at that list, one of the things that I love to teach my students is that real estate investor, that's a very vague term. Like, what does real estate investor really mean? I think we're problem solvers. How you get deals. Nobody randomly just puts their home up on the market. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'm going to stick it for sale side of my lawn and see what happens. They're either moving up, they're moving down, they lost their job, they're getting divorced, they're being relocated, whatever it is, there's always a story behind it. And there's always a problem because obviously if their home was sold, they wouldn't have a sign on their lawn, or sometimes they don't even have that sign on their lawn. But we're problem solvers. And to me, when I see a list of people are losing their home in 3 weeks, that's a pretty big problem. And that's a lot of people that have a lot of motivation to sell their home. And so I used to, back in the day in 2008, during the last big recession, I formed a company called Foreclosure Fixers. And what we did at Foreclosure Fixers, I sent out flyers that basically said, I can help stop the foreclosure. So imagine you live in a home, you're going to lose it in 3 weeks, and all that's coming in your mail is these We Buy Ugly Homes flyers, and collection agencies reaching out to you, and banks and lawyers, and everybody else is negative. They're all either trying to steal your home or kick you out of your home. And then you get something saying, I can help stop the foreclosure. That's a pretty nice thing to receive when you're in that mode. And so I would get a lot of calls from people back in the days, and I would do it off lists like that. I'd find people in trouble, send them these marketing materials, and I would get one of two types of people. The first type is there's often often bad things happen to good people. And I can't think of a time in history, like right now with this COVID thing going on, where more good people who have never missed a payment in their life, they would never dream of being delinquent. Well, if your business shuts down or you lose your job, what are you going to do? Unless you have some savings,
Sure.
You're going to be in trouble. And so that's number one. That's the first type of person. And for those type of people, I would typically come in and quite often, okay, we lost our job, but now we're working again. We can afford the payments. We just can't afford, we're $10,000 behind. We can't afford it. So for people like that, I would typically loan them $10,000. By the way, for those of you thinking, well, this is a no money down strategy. It doesn't have to be your $10,000. You can take the spread on. You can go borrow it from somebody for 7%, charge them 12%, keep the spread. Doesn't have to be your money. But anyway, or guess what? You can wholesale that property. But what I would do, I usually loan the money, pay off the arrears. Of course, I do the proper paperwork to protect myself in case they didn't pay. And then I would help them actually stay in their home. But then there's a second type of person, and these people are what I call the keeping up with the Joneses type of people, and they have a way bigger home than they can afford. And they were just like really missing one paycheck away from losing the home anyway. They didn't need a pandemic to happen to lose a home.
Right.
And so for people like that, you don't want to loan the money.
No.
That's giving them a Band-Aid.
Yeah, no, they're going to do the same thing again.
Right, they're going to burn through your money, and not only will
Just
they
like
not
they
be able to pay
burned
the
through
bank or the county for the property taxes, they won't be able to pay you either. And so you don't want to do that. And for those people, I would do what I call give them a soft landing, which basically meant that I would I would buy their home off them, but I'd always make sure that they had money for damage deposit, several months rent, money for food, etc. Once again, it doesn't have to be your money, or you could wholesale it. You don't actually have to buy it. You could wholesale it. But I would make sure that I'd put them in a way better spot than where I left them. And what ended up happening after I did this for a little while is I didn't have to send out the marketing materials anymore. Because guess what? If somebody loses their job, they probably worked with 10 or 50 or 100 other people that lost their job, and they tell all their friends. And then lenders who never thought they would see their money without having to go through a foreclosure process, well, they started to call me up and go, Mike, you helped Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Well, we have a whole bunch of other people in the same boat. How can you help them? And so I didn't even have to send out the marketing materials. The bank started to contact me. The people's friends started to contact me. And we managed to purchase a whole lot of properties at pretty deep discounts, create a win for that person who was going to lose the home and get nothing. And it was a great project. So the number one part of this trifecta is helping people that are in trouble before they lose their home. And once again, you can wholesale those homes. It doesn't have to require any money. You might have to pay for a flyer at Vistaprint, which is almost free, and maybe a little bit of postage, but it will pay for itself very, very handsomely. So the second part of the trifecta is actually going to the auction. And at these auctions, I've had some of my students pick up single-family homes for $7,000. And I'm not talking that's the down payment. That's the actual purchase price on a single-family home. I had one student that comes to mind. He paid $7,200. That's actually Mike came on my training. But I had one student who paid $7,200, got a home probably worth around $100,000, and there was a tenant already in there paying $900 a month. So you can do the math. If you're getting $900 a month rent, and that's of course gone up a lot since then, but if you're getting $900 a month rent on something you paid $7,200 for, it doesn't take long to get your $7,200 back. And that $7,200, by the way, doesn't have to be your own money. You can put it on a credit card. If you're smart, you can say, hey, I've got opportunities where I can pick up properties for pennies on the dollar. If you're willing to invest with me, I'll do all the work. You put up the money, we'll split it 50-50. And you only have to do 1 or 2 deals with partners. After that, you've got your own money. You don't really need to continue doing that. And then the third part of the trifecta is something called overages. And even very sophisticated investors, very few of them know about this. So at these same auctions where you've done strategy 1, which is trying to get a hold of the people before they lose their home, then if you haven't been able to help them there, then you go bid on it at the auction. Well, part 3 of the trifecta is something called overages. And what that is, let's say the opening bid at an auction is $5,000 and the home gets bid up to $50,000. That first $5,000 belongs to the county fair and square. The additional $45,000, that actually belongs to the previous homeowner. And most previous homeowners have no idea this money is owed to them. At this point, they're usually pretty depressed because they've lost their home. They're probably either living on the streets or with a relative or a friend. They're certainly not in a good spot in most cases. And if you were to contact them and say, listen, I know somebody owes you $45,000. If you're willing to split it with me, I'm willing to do all the paperwork. I'll take care of all the legal fees. I'll do everything required to get you this money. And you can agree to take 10%, 20, 40, 50, whatever it is that you agree upon. And I have one of my friends, that's pretty much her only real estate strategy is overages. Her smallest paycheck was $21,000 because she only deals with the bigger overages. And it's a great win-win. You're taking somebody who had no idea this money was owed to them. They're in a really, really bad spot financially. And now you're getting them a lump sum of cash that's probably going to change their life. So that's the third part of the trifecta, doing these overages. And that requires zero money. You might have to pay for the occasional, some counties will charge you for the list of the overages, a small amount of money. If you can't track down the people yourself, sometimes they'll do what's called hiring a skip tracer. And that's almost like a detective that specializes in finding people. But a lot of times you can do this all yourself. And once again, it requires very little or no money. And so that's what I'd be doing. If I could talk to myself 32 years ago and I knew then what I know now, that's what I'd be doing. And once again, it would have sped up, and I'm very grateful for where I'm at, so I'm not complaining, but that would have sped up the process tremendously.
Yeah. So as you can see, there's so many different ways to buy real estate. One of the strategies that Mike talked about, not only wholesaling and overages and auctions, all of these, some of these may take some money. If you go to the auction, you're going to need $7,200. You're going to need some of this. And one of the things that we've talked about over the years is it doesn't have to be your money. Real estate is something that I believe is accessible to everyone. It's the great equalizer. I don't care how much money you grew up with, what kind of neighborhood you grew up in, it doesn't matter. Money doesn't know that. It just knows if you're doing the right strategy in order to get a hold of it. The last year when we bought all these apartment buildings, none of the money came from our pockets. And so if you don't have any money, welcome to most of the people that get in real estate. Yeah. Most of us started off with no cash. Maybe we had a down payment, but I say this all the time. We all invest to the ceiling of our capital. So if you got $100,000 in the bank, you invest it, guess what? It's gone. Now what do? So you either have to find different strategies or you're done investing until you replace that and replenish that cash. And some people save up years to get that kind of money. And some people never get that kind of money. And so understanding real estate is not something that you sit back and say, man, I don't have any money, I can't get in. I assure you, it's one of the few things you do not need to have money to make money. I assure you, that is a myth. That is a big myth, actually. And so whether you're raising private capital or you're doing some real estate strategy, whether it's overage or tax deed, and the cool thing about the tax auction, and this is what I did, I went to the tax auction with somebody else's money.
Absolutely.
So I went and I was bidding on houses, and it wasn't my cash in my pocket. It was somebody else's money who gave me money to go to the auction. And by the way, they actually gave me cash so I could go to the auction and buy these houses at depressed prices because it doesn't have to be.
But he actually went to Vegas and put it all on red.
I did, and tripled it, then went and bought houses. And no, but the truth of the matter is, it wasn't my money, and it doesn't have to be your money. So Robert Kiyosaki said in his book, if you can't afford something, don't ask, why can't I afford that? Ask, how can I afford that? So if you want to get into real estate, it's time to ask, how can I get into real estate even though I don't have any money?
Well, Chris is going to kick us off the stage.
Yeah, he's definitely going to kick us off. He's definitely going to kick us off the stage. He told us like 15 minutes, and I'm like, dude, I can't say my name in 15 minutes.
Exactly.
It's a really long name, right?
It's so true.
Yeah. So guys, if you haven't already, smash that like button. These guys just brought the heat. If you haven't checked this guy out, go over, check him out. Google or YouTube Mike Fritz, and I think your channel will pop up, right?
I should pop up, absolutely, yeah.
Mike Wolf Mastery here, head cash flow hacking real estate expert, and that's it, guys. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit the bell. That way you get notified every time we launch a new video. And just look forward to seeing you on the next video. I'm all tongue-tied. I've just been sitting on the side being lazy right here.
He's just getting back in the game.
These are the kind of videos I need to do more.
We're doing all the work.
I let you guys do all the work, and I just sit there.
It's so much easier.
I hope the snoring didn't come up on the mic.
I know, right? I know, seriously. So guys, I can't wait to see you on the next video. Have a blessed, inspirational day, and we'll see you then. Take care.
Take care.
Peace.